Hello and welcome to Swipe. From here, one of the most competitive and affluent places on earth, the city. Coming up, digging the digital dirt. We're at a top law firm to talk about why landing a good job may mean taking the social out of media. On your bike, the tech keeping the Tour de France teams on the right track. Pinky Power, the handy project to increase our finger count. And becoming Batman, we take on the Dark Knight in this week's Games Review. This week, we're at one of the country's top law firms where we've been finding out how your chances of landing a dream job or any job could be seriously affected by those recent Facebook status updates. Oh, and don't forget those party photos. Katie Spencer's been finding out why she needs to clean up her profile page.
There are some nights out which are perhaps better forgotten. But in today's social media savvy world, it's not just a sore head you can be left struggling with. What you post online could also leave you struggling to find a job.
This year we saw about 50% of employers report that they use social media to review applicants for their positions. And they're looking at things like the type of posts people are making, who they interact with online to help them make decisions about hiring.
At law firm Slaughter & May, technology lawyer Rob Sumroy advises clients on just how far they can go when it comes to scanning applicants' social media. While employers are entitled to look at anything that's publicly available, there are guidelines they should follow.
The Information Commissioner, who's the UK regulator around the use of personal data, he's put guidelines out which aren't strictly law, but you should comply with them. And those guidelines say, don't do a blanket vetting of social media. Wait until you've got a candidate who's some way along the process. Make sure that that candidate knows that you're going to vet social media, and that gives them an opportunity to opt out.
Landing a top job in the city is no longer about just having a good CV. With over half of employers using social networking sites to research potential employees, it's not just what we say at an interview that counts.
43% of employers now use search engines like Google to do extra research. But if you're using social media in the right way, it can also help you secure a job.
Over 18 million people have now watched Marina Shifrin's very public resignation video. The message to her employers went viral, and off the back of this, the young comedy writer was offered a role as a digital content producer on a US TV show. It was a gamble that paid off, but one which could have very easily killed her career.
Although obviously we want people to have a personality and a life that is going to come through on there, it also needs to be balanced with the fact that you have other interests in a wider scope than just going out drinking and partying.
While it's important to have a presence online that demonstrates your character to potential employers, how we behave on social media can mean the difference between who's hired and who's fired. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
Well, joining me now is Rob Sumroy, who you will have seen in Katie's piece just there. Rob, you're a technology lawyer and a partner here at Slaughter & May, and you have clients who scan social media for headhunting purposes. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. They see the benefit of being able to get information about applicants through social media and other publicly available sources.
And that's perfectly legal?
Yeah, I mean, it can be. There are guidelines and there's laws that you have to follow, but, people like the Information Commissioner, who's the regulator around use of personal data, he gives guidelines on how you can vet candidates, and you have to follow those guidelines. But if you do, then it is perfectly legal.
And what are they looking for in that vetting process?
Well, I think it's just the interesting things about the candidate that maybe you wouldn't see in the CV. If the CV has been put together by the candidate as their story about themselves, then what they maybe put out there in social media is a bit more honesty and a bit more truth. Is that person suitable and suited to the organisation?
Okay, what would be unsuitable? In terms of users, what should they avoid putting up on their Facebook pages?
Well, look, I always say to them they've got to see social media as like any other media, and imagine you were given the front page of a national newspaper for the day and told, put some stuff there out about you for people to see. You'd only want things out there that you were proud about and that you were happy for people to see, especially, potential new employers. So don't put anything out there that's going to be embarrassing.
What about things like silly photos? Because they might be embarrassing, but it might show a potential employer that someone's got a good sense of humour.
Exactly, yeah. And I think there's an important message there, and I certainly say this to my clients, is, what is it that you're actually looking for in the social media? There's nothing wrong with a funny photo. And, we don't want to recruit people who are robots or automatons. They've got to have a personality. So yeah, I think, you know, funny photos are fine. It's more extreme opinions maybe would be something that people need to keep under wraps and private.
Do you think there might be a time one day when looking at your social media page is as important as looking at a CV?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say as important. I mean, I think the CV is the key recruitment tool because that is the message that the applicant is giving out there. They're answering the questions and it's got all the important information about them. But, you know, as I said earlier, I think social media and what people put out there maybe when they're being slightly less guarded gives you a bit more of a flavour about their personality and what they're like, and it's an important tool to use along with the CV.
Okay, fascinating to hear that, Rob Sumroy. Thank you.
Thanks.
You're watching Swipe. Coming up, dust off your Stormtrooper outfit. We're hanging out with the gaming fanboys at this year's Comic-Con. But first, the Tour de France is arguably one of the most prestigious cycling races in the world. It doesn't get much better than watching the peloton race through some breathtaking scenery at breakneck speeds. But it's not just the cyclists who are working flat out. Behind the scenes, a massive communications team is working to keep things running smoothly. Sky's David Maclean has been to the Pyrenees to find out more.
In the shadow of the Pyrenees, the world's best cycling teams prepare for a grueling 90-mile race through the mountains. The jagged course peaks with a 2,000-metre climb, followed by a white-knuckle descent, and the athletes and their bikes must be in peak condition. High above them, another team makes last-minute adjustments to make sure the Tour de France stays on track. It's something viewers take for granted, but the communications team behind the world's biggest annual sporting event is immense. At each of the race's 21 stages, hundreds of staff and contractors have to roll out 15 miles of cable and assemble 12 tons of hardware. Camera crews across the course beam their pictures to 2 helicopters, who fire those to planes circling above. From there, it's beamed to 190 countries around the world.
It's a circus. We have all days problems, and we resolve in a few minutes problems. And TV, radios don't show the problems. So it's a big challenge.
As well as TV coverage, the team is tasked with making sure riders' times add up across some of the world's most challenging terrain. High-speed fibre optic cables span the course, through which data from 700 timing points are fed through to a central computer. Each of the 6 cars used by the race officials are equipped with Wi-Fi to communicate with each other and the teams as they weave through isolated mountain passes. Meanwhile, super-fast internet connections for up to 1,000 devices is provided for the pack of journalists following the world's most prestigious cycling event.
This is the biggest race of the world, of course, and you see the enthusiasm of the public, and also for the riders. It's the best race we want to win.
For the teams behind the technology, it's a tough month. At the end of each stage, the equipment is packed up within hours and driven through the night to the finish line of the next stage, where the show starts all over again. A process that takes 2 years to plan and one that's over in seconds. David Maclean, Sky News, in the Pyrenees.
You're watching Swipe. Coming up, Pinky Power, the handy project to increase our finger count. But first, for this next item, I was hoping to wear my Stormtrooper outfit. Unfortunately, though, there's a strict dress code here and I had to leave it outside. But there's a part of me that wishes right now I was over in San Diego at the Comic-Con convention.
The Avengers Age of Ultron and Batman vs Superman might end up getting all the headlines this weekend at Comic-Con, but the video game industry is approaching the 4-day festival of pop culture with a real vigour. The industry uses it as a launch pad for some of the biggest releases over the next 12 months, and they pull out all the stops. Fans can zip line through Gotham City for Batman Arkham Knight, free run through an obstacle course for Assassin's Creed Unity, or even take some life-size Mario Karts for Nintendo's latest release of their racing sensation. Elsewhere, there are movie tie-ins aplenty. There's the Middle-earth Shadows of Mordor, which takes players on a journey set between the events of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Who can even resist the blocky Dark Knight saga, Lego Batman 3 Beyond Gotham? That's been launched here this weekend as well, with the very own Adam West, the original Batman, of course. Now, most of these games haven't been seen before in public, making Comic-Con a major player and the video game convention circuit.
You're watching Swipe. Coming up, has the Dark Knight still got it? We're taking Batman on in this week's Games Review. But first, now they say you can tell a lot about a person from the size of their hands. I've always had very small hands. And now researchers in the United States have come up with a gadget which could be pretty handy for me.
Humans were dealt a pretty good hand when it came to evolution. With 2 sets of 4 fingers and a couple of opposable thumbs, we've come quite a way. But have you ever wondered if the arrangement could be, well, handier?
We want to extend the synergy-based control to wearable robotic limbs.
Researchers at Massachusetts Institute of Technology believe nature could do with a helping hand. They've been working on a robotic glove that gives us 2 extra fingers.
It has 6 degrees of freedom, 3 degrees of freedom in each finger. The fingers are quite long, so the user can grab things that are usually much larger or much heavier than they can do with a single hand.
Through a clever algorithm, the robot fingers are easily positioned in line with the human fingers, so the movement feels very natural and intuitive. If you thought 5 fingers was the perfect number, well, think again. Check out what you could do with 7. The team believe it could help the elderly or people with disabilities to live more independent lives.
This particular hands or fingers, we can find many other ways of using it, and we're still exploring what the kind of tasks will be useful for the people.
For many of us, we use smartphones so frequently it can feel like an extension of our own bodies. Scientists hope that eventually we'll become so comfortable with robotics that a few extra computerised fingers could feel like second nature. Giles Wynne, Sky News.
You're watching Swipe. Coming up, is it game over for Batman? We're looking at the Dark Knight in this week's Games Review. But first, here's a roundup of anything you might have missed this week. Facebook shares hit a new record high this week after it posted a profits growth of 137% for its last quarter. The world's largest internet social network now counts 1.32 billion users per month. Meanwhile, profits at Microsoft have taken a hit after the company's acquisition of Nokia. The technology giant made £2.7 billion in the 3 months to the end of June, a 7% fall on the same period last year. In stark contrast, strong iPhone sales have helped Apple to a bumper quarter. The company made a profit of £4.5 billion, a 12% improvement compared to last year. More than 35 million iPhones were sold. However, iPad sales fell for the second quarter in a row.
I think it's less of a status symbol than phones, actually. Your phones are quite public. You stick them on the table, everyone can see if you've got the fingerprint scanner, and if you care about that kind of thing, then you will want the latest. Whereas I think once people have an iPad, they're not so desperate to replace it every 1 or 2 years.
While we're talking gadgets, a tiny device which links to your smartphone has been developed to let you know if your drink has been spiked and what it's been laced with. The PDID, which can fit on your keyring, uses tech already used by America's Drug Enforcement Agency.
Simply dip, wait a few seconds, and you will know if your drink has been drugged. Once immersed, the PDID takes 3 different tests to identify the drink and its components.
Developer David Wilson has put it onto crowdfunding website Indiegogo to try and raise enough cash to get it mass-produced. It seems it's a man's world if you're working at Twitter. New figures released by the company show that the social media site is mostly staffed by men. The tech industry has come in for a lot of stick just recently for not being diverse enough. The data shows overall only 30% of Twitter's staff are female. And a supermarket in Staffordshire is going to be the first to be powered by rotten food. Sainsbury's has revealed its super self-sufficient plans to create its own electricity generated from biogas. Apparently, food from the store which can't be given away or resold as animal feed is going to be poured into an anaerobic digester. The electricity generated from methane that's given off will then be piped back into the store. Don't worry though, I'm reliably informed you won't be able to smell it. Well, fans now have to wait until 2015 for the next generation Batman game. So is the third in Rocksteady's trilogy worth the wait? Ross Thompson has been taking a look.
Batman Arkham Knight isn't due out until 2015, but it's the 4th game over recent years of a Batman franchise, but it's the 3rd game from Rocksteady. So this is the one that probably it's going to end the trilogy, and the one that people are really waiting for. It's only going to be available on Xbox One, PlayStation 4 and PC, so it's a next generation game. Third-person style game, very similar in ways of how the previous two games have played. So it's up to you as Batman to go around Gotham City and save the day from all of these criminals that are out there. It looks fantastic, expansive beyond anything else you've seen in one of these games before. It's truly going to hopefully end this story and this journey for Batman. I'm sure there's more announcements to come over the coming months before its release in early 2015. If you've loved the previous Batman games, this will have everything plus more, so I highly recommend getting hold of it when it does come out. The next game is Disney Infinity 2.0 Marvel Superheroes. You get 3 toys in the starter pack, which you can then place on this cool base that, as soon as you place it on there, they turn up on your screen in the actual game. The likes of Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Black Widow, and they come up on screen and you get them to play through different adventures in different areas of the Marvel Universe. People can go on, build their own levels, play sets, and then upload them online, so to let everyone around the world play them. Limitless, really, to a point of how much gameplay you can get out of this. With it being Marvel, set with Avengers, with, I would expect, plenty of new characters to come post-launch, huge success written all over it. So the next game is Lego Batman 3. It's the third of the Batman games, but there's been plenty of other Lego games within these franchises. And this time, Lego Batman's going into space. So Brainiac has stolen the Lantern Ring, and he's basically shrinking universes across the galaxy. So it's up to you as Batman and all of the other DC characters to go after him and basically save the universe. It's great that it's not set within the Gotham City. You're going to get exactly the same experience you would get from a Lego game. So it's all about smashing things up, collecting as many coins as you can, the replayability with all of the different characters. There's around 150 characters you'll be able to unlock in this game.
Your suit looks really good, is all I'm saying. One hero to another. It's really working for you. Sorry, right, brooding. Carry on.
They're hugely addictive. These games are really for any age group. Doesn't matter whether you're a child, a teenager, an adult, you'll always love this. There's a great co-op capability as well, so you can split screen and play together with friends. The Lego franchise goes from strength to strength, and Batman 3 Beyond Gotham will be a huge success for them later on this year. The last game is Star Wars Battlefront. You start as either on the Rebel side or the Empire, and they'll be set in key areas from the whole Star Wars world, as it were. So you could be on Hoth, in the real ice-cold world of being on speeder bikes or land speeders, ATSTs if you're on the Empire side, and it's all about taking over the map. Again, this has got so much potential because it's been quite a long time since the last one came out, and they've gone back to the Lucas Ranch and they've gone to see all of the original models that were made for the original films. Plus, they will probably release this in line with the new film, so next year, or 2015, could be a huge year for Star Wars. It looks, from what we've seen, which is only a very small amount, truly amazing. Again, don't know exactly when it's coming, but I'm sure we'll see more and more of this over time, and yeah, I'm very much excited for this.
Thanks, Ross. That's it for this week. Don't forget you can catch up with all the breaking tech stories all week on Sky News for iPad, our smartphone apps and skynews.com. See you next time. Bye-bye.